Hello, it's Alpha here, and today we're going to be talking about ClashFronts. Now, I collected some data from our second ClashFronts game, and I'm going to be showing some stats about the most used heroes and factions in the ClashFronts teams, and then I'm going to be talking about a little bit about like troop deployment strategy and how many points you should be aiming to get in your game. Now, these stats are based on teams that got win streaks of 3 or higher. So these are only from teams that had win streaks. Now, one disclaimer, obviously, about this data is that this is only based on one game. So one game between 4 guilds. So, of course, it's possible that your games have completely different data. But this is just reflecting like what heroes people are using on my district, and maybe these are not the best teams, but at least these were teams that were able to get like win streaks. So the most used artifact when it comes to win streaks was Storm Strike spell, the second one was Harmonic spell, and the third one was Surging spell. So there is not really that many big surprises there. Those are kind of like considered to be the strongest PvP artifacts. The most used faction talent was by far the Wilder factions. So 31 of the win-streaking teams were Wilder teams, 7 teams were Graveborn teams, and then there were some like couple teams that were other factions. And then if we take a look at the heroes, it's quite clear which hero was usually part of the teams that got the win streak. Bonnie was in 26 of the win streaking teams. And you can then maybe guess which team combination was used most with Bonnie. The next most used heroes in the win streak was Damien, Tassi, and Taylene. Maybe like the part of the second team is gonna be then like Aaron and Olmus and Lily May. And then you just see like some generally strong PvP heroes like Fresto, Ludovic, and Thoran. You can kind of use those heroes in any team really, but then they can also be used to activate the Graveborn talent, which was like part of some of the win streaking teams. Then you have Scarlita, and Scarlita can be used well in some of the Wilder teams. She works well with the Wilder faction talents. And then Lenya can be used as one of the carry heroes in the Wilder teams. We have some like heroes like Brian and Niru, who are usually used in combination with like Aaron and Ulmus to make sure that your Aaron is able to cast his ultimate at the start of the battle. Siren is still such a new hero that maybe there were not enough people like testing him. I would expect that in the next clash he will be more used in the win streak teams as well. So yeah, there is nothing really that surprising when it comes to these teams getting win streaks. I think the most used team when it comes to win streak was the Bonnie, Tassi, Taylene, Havin, and Damien. Then you could maybe do something like Lenya and Lily May on your second team. And then your third team could be something like Aaron and Olmus team. And then you want Niru or Brian to block the Lily May's interruption. And then just like some DPS heroes like Siren and Alsa or Carolina or Arden. Or you could maybe try bringing in twins. Then if you need more teams or you don't have some of the heroes, then you can obviously use like your Thoran, Ludovic, and then if you have Igor, then that as like a core for your Graveborn team, or then you can try to make some kind of Mauler team with some of these heroes as the core of the Mauler team, and then mixing in someone like Lily May to provide some more extra damage or some healing from Havin or something. Or you could try to use some kind of Lightbearer team with like Twins and Siren and Sonia as the carry. Of course, if you have some of the Celestial Hypogenes like Cryonaya or Harak or Dionel, then you know the best how to utilize those, but then of course you want to use them in some of your teams. But I think this is kind of like a good core when it comes to choosing your teams. Then I will just give a quick recap of the areas that the guild that came second in our clash captured, and then I will give a quick recap of the areas that we captured during the game, just to kind of show you like how many areas you actually need to capture during a game to potentially finish in the top 2. Now, of course, every game is going to be a little bit different, but this is just kind of like to give you an idea. So during round 1, the red team captured the 2 areas that are available to them. So they got like, this is how many points they got during that specific round. During round 2, they didn't manage to capture any additional areas, and they got about the same amount of points. They got some extra points from the skirmishes. During the round 3, they managed to capture one of the 200-point areas, but they kept their 100-point area. During the round 4, they only kept their 200-point area and then captured one of the 80-point areas. And then during the last round, they captured the 250-point area and the 200-point area. So throughout the whole game, every round they only had 2 areas in their control, but they still managed to end up with over 2,000 points in the end, and that made them get the second position. That being said, they did have like really strong Vanguard Skirmish teams, so they won most of their Vanguard skirmishes, so that gained them a lot of extra points. But you can see that it's definitely possible to even get like 2,000 points just by only having like 2 areas in every round. Then this is how our game went. We also managed to capture both of the areas during the first round. Then second round we captured 3 of the areas. And then third round we actually kind of spread our teams around quite a lot, and we somehow managed to get 4 different areas. We sent only like 6 teams on this 80-point area and 4 teams on this other 80-point area, but we still managed to capture them. So I would definitely recommend that if you see that your opponents are not like spending resources defending these 80-point areas, that you try to like capture them with like small amount of teams. Then during the last 2 rounds, we pretty much did the same thing of sending like all of our teams on the hamster bonus tile, which gives 500 points. And then we sent like a couple teams, somewhere between like 5 and 10 teams on the outer 80-point tiles. And that means that in the end we had 2,970 points and we won the clash. Then let's talk a little bit about scoring points. Now, I don't claim that this is like gonna be the best strategy for you, but this is kind of like how I think about scoring in this game mode. So the total number of available points in whole ClashFronts game is gonna be somewhere around like 7,700 to like 8,300 points. It's a little bit hard to like give an exact number because there are things like the Vanguard Skirmishes that will give points based on like how many of them happen during the game. So during our first game, ClashFronts game, the total number of points that all of the guilds got was 8,180, and then during the second game it was only 7,800 points. So during different rounds there is a different amount of points available, because like during the first round you can only attack 2 different zones, and then during the second round you can't attack the center HQ, and then during the rounds 4 and 5 there is the extra hamster zone which gives 400 bonus points. So if we then split this total available number of points between all of the 4 guilds, then each guild should be getting about 1,950 points. So this is about the number of points you should be expecting to get if you want to be like at least the number 2 guild. Now the number 1 and number 2 guilds should be getting a little bit more than this, but this is like about the number. Now of course it can be that there is one guild that is a lot stronger than the other guilds, and if they have like over 3,000 points, then there is less points for the other guilds available, and then it can mean that every other guild will get less than this amount of points. But it's like, I think it's a good like guiding number of points that you should be aiming to get. So during round 1 you can only get maximum points of 268. And then let's say that your second round goes pretty well and you get like 400 points during the second round. Then during the last 3 rounds you will need only like about 420 to 450 points every round to get close to the 2000 points mark. So you don't actually need that many points per round. And usually you should be able to get like from the Vanguard Skirmishes, you should get like 40 to 100 points every round. And then from the combat trials, you should be getting like 40 to 60 points. So then that means that from the actual like occupation points, you only need about like 300 points per round. So then let's quickly talk about the Vanguard skirmishes. I think it's pretty much always going to be worth like sending your Vanguard teams to all of the possible areas, because even if you don't send your team and the enemy has Vanguard team in one area, they will get 8 points by default. But if you do send your team, even if you lost that fight, you will still get 10 points. And sometimes you can even get 14 points, even if you lose and the fight is close. So the difference between you and that guild will stay about the same, about the 10 points. But both guilds will actually gain points compared to the other 2 guilds who were not participating in the Vanguard battle. So you are still, like with one team, you are basically gaining some points compared to the other 2 guilds. And then there is, of course, always the chance that if you are somewhat on like equal level, that you will win the fight and then you will get 20 points. And by doing this, it also kind of forces your opponents to do the same, because like if they're not having any like Vanguard teams there, then you will get some free points and you can potentially like capture their areas by doing this. Also, one thing kind of related to Vanguard teams is that whenever you are deploying any troops to an area, you should also send one of your Vanguard teams with those troops, because if the opponent sends Vanguard there and you have troops there but you don't have the Vanguard there, they will still get like 8 free points for having a Vanguard of their own in that area.